everyone, welcome to the latest video for Score Settled. Right, so we are back with another set of questions that are very important from the UGC net economics perspective. So let's begin. Okay, now the first question is that if the marginal propensity to consume is 0.8 and initial increase in tax revenue by the government is rupees 100, then what will be the impact on the national income? For this, we need to know the formula first. So what is your tax multiplier? Tax multiplier is given as the ratio of minus MPC upon 1 minus MPC. And tax multiplier is nothing but change in income by change in taxes, which is equal to minus MPC upon 1 minus MPC. Now we are given the values of MPC as 0.8. So we can substitute this as minus 0.8 upon 1 minus 0.8 would be 0.2, right? So it will be minus 4. Tax multiplier will be 4. Now we have to find the impact on national income. Now change in income upon change in taxes, nothing but tax multiplier, is given as minus 4. We are given that if the tax revenues are increased by 100, what will be the impact on income? So change in taxes 100. Substituting this value here, it will be change in y upon 100 is equal to minus 4. So change in income will be equal to minus 400, implying that because of the initial increase in taxes, your income has reduced by 400. So the answer will be 3 in this case. So we have to be very particular about this sign. Okay. Next question. In which of the following year the mandate or preamble of RBI has been amended? This is a factual question related to your Indian economy and the answer is 2016. Now what happened in this year was that the RBI introduced monetary policy framework in this case. Now what is monetary policy framework, right? This is nothing but it was a statutory system that is bound by law, right? Statutory system established under the RBI Act of 1934 to maintain both price stability, right? RBI has to maintain price stability, as well as keeping this price stability into mind, we have to foster economic growth as well. So a statutory system was designed in the name of monetary policy framework, where you need to control inflation, high inflation levels, bring about price stability in the economy, and also simultaneously foster your economic growth or increase or enhance the economic growth of the country. This amendment was brought in the year 2016. Very important, right? Very much relevant. So do keep this in mind. Okay. Next question. Which of the following is likely to lead to a rise in the output cost of disinflation? First thing that we need to keep in mind is that what is disinflation? And as the name suggests, first thing that comes to our mind is that prices are reducing, right? Also, there is a reduction in GDP. Also, there is a fall in employment level in the economy. So disinflation is a very sad state for the economy, and this is mainly caused by your contractionary or very rigid policies, right, where the authorities are trying to control inflation, but instead what they are doing is that they're also reducing GDP and also leading to fall in employment levels in the economy. So remember the Phillips curve here, right? So there is always a trade-off between your price level and the unemployment. So if you want to reduce the price level in the economy, that will come at the cost of high unemployment. Okay, so Phillips curve is very much relevant here. So what is the output cost of disinflation? Now the output cost of disinflation is actually measured by your sacrifice ratio. And what is this sacrifice ratio? That what is the percentage change in output that is caused due to 1% change in inflation. So how will your output be impacted when there is a 1% fall in inflation level? That is your sacrifice ratio. To bring a fall in inflation, how much output you are ready to sacrifice, right? That is your sacrifice ratio. And this inflation is mainly caused by the contractionary policies. Okay. Now, coming back to the question, which of the following is likely to lead to a rise in the output cost of disinflation? First option is that inflation expectations become more accurate, right? No, actually it reduces, right? Because, like people get accustomed to these changes, or they are more prone to or estimate accurately what the policy is going to be, right? Then second is that there is a sluggish response of wages and prices to monetary contraction. This is a direct impact, right? Because the wages and the prices, they do not automatically adjust, right? So if you say that there is a high cost of living, it will take some time for the wages to increase, right? So the wages and the prices, they do not automatically adjust to the market system, right? So this is the direct impact of your output cost of disinflation. It will lead to a rise in the output cost of disinflation. Okay. Next question. According to Lucas' critique, before proceeding to the options, let's just understand what is Lucas' critique. Okay. Now, Lucas basically stated that now you cannot always rigidly define the relationship between the two variables, right? Based on historical data or aggregate data, you cannot always say that high demand will lead to high prices always. This is just an example that I'm giving you. Okay, so Lucas basically stated that any sort of change in your policy, right, any policy change will also have an impact on the people's expectations that is there, right? The actually stakeholders who are there, their expectations also change, and it is very subjective. Their expectation is very subjective. So you cannot just rigidly define the relationship between two data just because that has been happening historically. Okay, so this is not always true, and that's what your Lucas critique basically stated, that it is, you can just write it down, that it is basically incorrect to predict the effect of change, right, in economic policy. That you cannot just say that, okay, if we adopt contractionary policy, it will lead to fall in prices. That is not always true. There is a new concept, that is disinflation, right? So what happened during the economic recession was not at all anticipated. Okay, till then the classical school of thought was very successful, but the recession showed that you cannot always use the same medicine for all the problems, right? So any kind of economic policy will not have a similar impact, okay, because the expectations, people's expectations play a very crucial role. And as a result, the answer comes out to be that Your stability of coefficients of models are important for policy predictions. You need to understand that are your coefficients actually stable? If your data is showing a lot of fluctuations over the period of time, that means your relationship between the two variables, the model that has been stated, cannot be applied on all the situations. Okay, so it is very important, if you want to predict the results of a policy, it is very important that you understand the stability of the coefficients of the model. If they are stable, yes, they will give the desired results. But if they are not, then be prepared that the model can, or the policy, economic policy can lead to different results as well. Okay, so that's what your Lucas critique basically stated, right? Next question. According to the neoclassical growth theory, an increase in savings rate. According to the neoclassical growth theory, first you need to note is that there are both short run impact and a long run impact. Okay, in the case of the short run, what happens is that there is an increase in savings rate, right? This will lead to increase in investment, and this will lead to increase in capital accumulation, and this ultimately will lead to growth, right? Output growth. This is the short run impact, that increase in savings will lead to increase in investment, increase in capital accumulation, and ultimately increase in growth. But according to the neoclassical growth theory, the long run change in output, or the long run change in growth, is only and only determined by the exogenously determined variable. And what are these exogenously determined variable? The technological progress, right, and your population growth. These are the exogenously determined variables. So in the short run, yes, savings rate, an increased savings rate, to be more precise, can lead to increase in output growth. But in the long run, if you want to experience the change in output, that will only be due to these exogenously determined variables, that is your technology as well as your population growth. Okay, let's just go through the options. That first, raises the growth rate of output in the short run, definitely yes. Increases long run growth rate of output, not necessarily true, right? Then decreases the steady state capital ratio, no, it increases, right? And decreases the long run level of capital and output per head, no, it increases. Okay, so the correct answer is option 1. So I hope this video was useful and you've noted down some important points from it. Okay, so we'll see you in the next video. Till then, take care. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.